Whoa, one of those incredible stories. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to share with you this afternoon something that I'm really passionate about, and that is sharing the gospel. And my first point is, just like Nhlaga ended, was Jesus broke boundaries, and so we should too. And Jesus shows us such an incredible example of how to spread the gospel when he met that woman at the well in John 4. And so what happened in that story is Jesus had a long journey and he needed to rest. And so he was resting at the well and he needed something to drink. Now, I just want to pause there for a second and say the well was a very ordinary place. She went there to get water. It's a place where we would walk into, like a grocery store or workplaces. And that's where they were. And straight away, Jesus says to her, "Please give me something to drink." And immediately she says, "You are a Jew, and I am a Samaritan. How dare, or how can you ask me for something? How can you ask me for a drink?" And what had happened there is Jesus had broken a boundary. He had broken the boundary of gender, and he had broken the boundary of culture. And so too, do we come across thousands of people every day where there's a boundary that sits between them and us. There's a boundary of race. There's a boundary of culture. There's a boundary of religion. There's a boundary of age, gender, whatever it may be. And we need to break it down. At a school that I taught at, it was a standing joke that my best friend on staff, her husband was a leader in the mosque, and my husband was a leader in a church, and we were best friends on staff. And so the staff used to tease us and say, "The Muslim and the Christian are at it again." And it became such a standing joke. But what had happened between myself and her, I broke a religious boundary. And when I broke that religious boundary, I created a bridge. As soon as you break a boundary, you get right into the inner world of that person. And when we break those boundaries, we build a bridge. And so what I did with her is I built a bridge. And rather than us let that boundary stand and create a gap between us and them, let's rather break those boundaries and create bridges. Still to this day, we don't work together anymore, but I will get messages from her saying, "Jenny, I need prayer for such and such." And so because I broke a boundary, that bridge is still standing. And Jesus explained to this woman at the well, he was trying to explain to her who he was, because it's not natural that you and I break boundaries. It's supernatural. And so when we break boundaries, we need to explain to people it's not just because I'm a good person. It's because I have Jesus in my life and he showed me that I need to break these boundaries. And as soon as Jesus says to her who he is, she immediately says, she shows an interest. "Sir, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water." And so when we break those boundaries and show them that Jesus is the reason we're doing it, they're going to see that there's more there. And when people see that there's more there, they're going to want to know more. Like Mark says, to stay after Alpha and talk till 10 o'clock, there's more there. They want to know what it is. My second point that we learn from the story is, don't judge someone just because they sin differently to you. So in verses 16 to 18, he said to her, "Go and call your husband and come back." "I have no husband," she replied. Jesus said to her, "You are right when you say you have no husband. The fact is, you have 5 husbands." Good luck to her. "And the man you now have is not your husband. What you have said is quite true." So Jesus knew very well that the woman that he was dealing with was no angel. She had a really bad reputation, and the actual reason why she was at the well when she was that no other woman would be there, because she had been rejected by society because of her reputation. Yet Jesus accepts her as she is. How many people do we come across in our workplaces, in our daily trips to the shop, that have been rejected by society? We shouldn't reject them because Jesus didn't. He accepted them warts and all. He shows them grace. And Jesus was without sin. you and I are with sin. How can we judge if he didn't? We have to move away from judging, and that judging is going to now put another boundary in the way. Instead, when we do not judge, we're going to start connecting into the inner world and building a bridge. The woman went to the well to get water, but she got so much more. Wouldn't it be amazing and fantastic if people come into the presence of you and I, and they just went to buy something from the shop, or they just came to work, and they left with so much more because they found Jesus in you and I. A couple of months ago, I went matric marking, and so obviously there are new markers every year, and I got put next to a girl, and we started talking, and I tried to find out a bit about her, and one thing led to another, and she said to me, "Oh, so you're not going to be drama teaching next year?" I said, "No, I'm actually going to take a chaplain position." Straight away, I could feel a boundary physically coming between us. And she said, "Oh, so you're a pastor?" I said, "No, I'm not a pastor. I'm just going to do the ministry at the school." And so she said to me, "Well, you're not going to want to carry on talking to me." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Because I'm gay." And she said, "Every single Christian I've come across has told me they can't carry on talking to me because I'm gay." And I said, "No, let's carry on chatting." And so obviously you spend 2 weeks matric marking, and by the end, she was calling me pasteurized, and we had broken a boundary. And she said to me, "I will only ever come to church if you're there." And she lives in the Hillcrest area, and we've made plans to meet at City Hill. And she said, "I will walk into a church if you're there." And I said to Sean when I got home, I said, "Imagine if I'd let a boundary stay there. I wouldn't be walking into a church with her." I got an SMS this week from her saying, "Pasteurized, guess what? I have signed up to do my master's in religion studies." And she said, "But don't get too excited, it's all religions." So I said, "No, I won't, but I'll keep praying that you find God in that." So never look down on anyone. Only God sits that high to look down. Thirdly, people may doubt what you say, but they're going to believe what you do. In 1 John 3, verse 18, it says, "Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth." William Shakespeare said, "All speakers give two speeches at the same time, the one that is heard and the one that is seen." Sometimes you and our actions are speaking so loudly they can't hear what we're saying. And we need to start preaching more with our actions in our lips. And what happened in the story is the lady, she was so excited about finding Jesus, she went and called a whole lot of more Samaritans to come and join her. And they said to her, "We now believe in Jesus because we have been in his presence. We've watched him. We've listened to him." And what had happened is they had heard about him and they'd seen him in action. And through your actions and my actions, they're going to see Jesus. Sean often tells me, "Jenny, you've got to be careful. You're like a goldfish in a glass bowl and everyone's watching you." A lot of people will say to me, "Jenny, where do you get your confidence from?" And I've been asked this quite a bit. And it's often from ladies who don't have confidence because of what they look like. And so they often wonder how I have confidence when I'm not a supermodel, which I think I am, but they don't. And my response to them is, it's a God confidence. It's not natural. It comes from a supernatural. And when they ask me that, I realize they've been watching me. We need to show them that we make mistakes. We need to show them that we're not boring. And there's such a cliche out there that Christians are boring. I've seen nothing of boredom in this conference. And we need to show them that we've got a sense of humor. We're not holier than thou. Fourthly and lastly, is we need to show them a picture from a different perspective. In verse 10 to 15 of the story of the well, Jesus answered her and said, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." And the woman says, "Sir, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming back." What Jesus did there is he used the situation they were in. He used the water as a picture, and what he did is he gave her a different perspective. She was there to collect water to quench her thirst. He gave her a Jesus perspective on the same situation. We can't get caught up in Christianese. We can't get caught up and say, "You are sanctified and justified," and the glorification. We're going to lose them. The gospel is very simple, and we need to keep it that way. And when we're doing that, we need to give people a Jesus perspective. On Thursday morning, I woke up, 4:30, off to my run, and at about 5:05, I realized my running partner hadn't set her alarm. And so I don't feel very safe running on my own, and so I was about to go home, and I felt God say to me, "You need to go to someone's house." Now, it's 5:05 in the morning. It's not the greatest time to knock on someone's door, but I thought, you know what, I need to be obedient to this. And so I did. And she answered straight away, which was quite funny because people aren't awake at that hour, normally. And as she opened the door, she said, "Jen, are you psychic?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "My depression has got so bad, and I was making stupid decisions about 5 minutes ago." And I said to her, I changed her perspective. I took the situation we were in, and I said to her, "I'm not psychic, but Jesus, I believe, gave me a word of knowledge, or a prophetic word, and he led me to you because he loves you." And so what I did with her psychic word and her perspective from a worldly perspective that I was psychic, I said, "No, it's nothing to do with me. It's all about Jesus." And I changed her perspective. And so let's guide those that we're speaking to. We take the context we're in and just shift it to Jesus' perspective. In ending, in verse 35, Jesus says, "I tell you, open your eyes and look at the fields." And I love the way Grant started the session by saying the harvest, because it says here, they are ripe for the harvest. We've heard of all these people that were ripe for the harvest and were picked. We need to look around at the fields that we're in, wherever we're in, because they're ripe. They're ripe for us to break boundaries and get into their inner worlds and build those bridges. They're ripe for us to show them that we're not the judge, God is. They're ripe for us to show them through our actions that we love Jesus. And they are ripe to see things from a different perspective, which is Jesus. So let's get out there. There's a ripe harvest, and we need to start harvesting.